Hello, my name is Aaron Kreuter, and I'm going to read a bunch of poems from my new book, Shifting Baseline Syndrome. There it is. Thanks, Rob, for inviting me to do this video reading. So first, I'm going to read the eponymous poem, Shifting Baseline Syndrome. Here it is. Shifting Baseline Syndrome. A cup of coffee was always $1.50. The fisheries were always stocked with the same amount of fish as when I was a little kid with a little kid's obsession with the ocean. From the windows of an airplane, the Great Lakes were always noosed in 4-lane highways. The land was always distributed in neat, tight little stamps. There were never any birds here. A moose was always a rare sighting. The bats were always dying. The wilderness was always accessible for the day rate of $12.50 a car, and the highly reasonable seasonal rate of $115. Speaking of cars, there were always cars. There were always tailing ponds. There were always spider webs of 6-lane highways, 8-lane highways, 10-lane highways. There were always continents. There were always oil spills visible from space. There were always clear cuts the exact shape and size of Kansas. We were always one heartbeat away from cancer. There was always somebody to hate and always a reasonable way to hate them. Our baselines haven't shifted. You have. We were always hemmed in by landfill. Our rivers were always flammable. Our lakes always figments of our imagination. There was always a view from the airplane window. Always. That was a prose poem. This next poem I'm going to read is also a prose poem. A fair number of poems in the collection are prose poems. This one is called Catastrophe Anonymous, and I'm going to dedicate this reading of this poem to my dear friend Tyler. Catastrophist Anonymous. Waiting for the results of the core sample, we already know the news isn't good. How could it be good? The phone rings and rings, which must mean they're all dead. The power blows, and here we are, catatonic on the pullout, our go bag forgotten. Our hearts skip a beat, and that's it, get us to the hospital. Hello, my name is Sisyphus, and I'm a perpetual failure. How is it possible that this bad mood will not be the final mood? How will the storm ever end? How will the doctor not say, the swelling, I'm afraid, is here to stay? The meth lab in our cortexes is currently in overproduction of a drug called too much. But what are we supposed to do? Call the fucking cops? Our post-punk band, Cognitive Distortions, has a show in Denmark, but the airline lost our pedal board, and without distortion, what are we but a bunch of trembling, fearful musicians who can't even read music? Our program has 3 steps. Step 1, relax. Step 2, talk ourselves down / put things into perspective. Step 3, choose an action to affect the outcome of the situation. Unless, of course, you're not overreacting, then forget the whole thing. Let panic, that willful teenager who abstained from jacking off for a week and now has lost his proverbial marbles, take the pre-verbal wheel. We no longer believe that the planet is what it is through a series of sudden disasters. Even though how right does this feel? How true? The forest changes too fast for us to notice, too slow for us to set our watches to. The heat wave is infernal, the cold snap eternal. The forest fire will always be just outside the fire retardant door. We could try to do something about it, but what's the point? The worst is already here, in all its present perfect glory. How don't you see it? We yell to our nieces on the newly reinstalled house line. The earth is dying. The earth is dead. The earth is, has been, and always will be. So I'm going to read one more poem. Not a prose poem, so a delineated poem, I suppose. And this one's called Bonetown, and I'll dedicate it to my dog Piper, who we just saw behind us. Bonetown. Like all accidental apocalypses, it started as a joke. Bonetown, I'd ask. Bonetown, you'd respond, our eyes on the screen. How are we to know? all those years ago, that Bonetown was more than just a glance between two characters who would soon be getting it on. That Bonetown was a terminal destination, the painful result of our human experiment in exponential growth, our delirious fucking ourselves right into the rag and bone town of the grave. We couldn't, or rather, we wouldn't. We were too busy waiting for the next surprise coupling, the next sexy instance of television logic desire, the weather announcers smiling during the commercial break as they repeated the long-term forecast. Low down, blown crown, Bonetown. That poem is one of the many poems that have to do with television and the metaphysics of television in the book. So thanks for listening. Pick up a copy wherever fine books are sold. Bye-bye.